Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Glasgow Rangers Nation podcast live, guys. We are joined by not one but two guests from the fantastic new podcast, Not Another Rangers podcast, by Scott and Davey. Scott, how's it going? How's your day been? And how's everything with you?
The day's been really good because I've been off work. I've been out in the back garden. I've been weeding, putting weed colour everywhere in the driveway and putting on washings and making dinners. But apart from that, I'm sweating on. It's warm. I'm stuck in an attic speaking to yourself.
That's me too, mate. I'm sort of sweating, hot, and everything. Davey, how's your day been, and how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm very good, Owen. Just a long day at work for myself, a bit like you, and looking forward to getting my teeth sunk into some Rangers talking points this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, let's face it, that's what keeps us going, doesn't it? The thought of talking about Rangers, and off air, Scott and I were talking about the fact that we'd both like to just give up work and just talk about Rangers 24/7. That would be far more happy and far more agreeable for all of us, rather than having to get up and go to work at ridiculous, silly times in the morning. Well, thank you to everyone, obviously, who's joined us tonight. I'm going to start off slightly unusually, guys. We're going to start off Scott, Davey, obviously you've launched a new podcast, Not Another Rangers podcast. Don't know who's going to do it, but plug away, guys. Tell us why you should subscribe. Tell us what we'll find on Not Another Rangers podcast, and tell us where to find you. I have got a little tick, obviously, guys, scrolling as well, telling you some bit of information. But guys, let's start off with a plug.
I'll let David plug away because Davey's a host with the most shows. So I'll let him plug away. He's the man that usually comes out with the good innuendos.
So obviously, me and Kerr have been part of the Rangers podcasting community for a wee while. Kerr obviously longer than myself, and we just decided to try and put our own slant on things. And it's a kind of satirical look at Rangers. Obviously, during the summer, we've kind of had probably the poorest summer in recent years in terms of transfer business, and I think the fan base is probably the lowest it's been expectation wise going into the season ahead. So we were trying to take a sort of tongue-in-cheek look at things and obviously analyse, strengths and weaknesses, where we can move forward. And obviously we've been bringing in guests from the Rangers podcasting community as we go through, as well as interviews from people associated with Rangers, both past and present.
Absolutely, yeah, and it's a fantastic watch, guys. Get yourself, I mean, if you haven't yet subscribed, and obviously if you're watching in the live chat tonight after the pod, go over to the podcast. The link is in the live chat. It's one of the first things we posted here. So obviously check it out, hit that sub, get over there, give them some support, get the numbers up. One of the things I've always said I would do on my channel, obviously other than to speak my mind, is obviously to, help other Rangers podcasters. I love having, Rangers podcasters on. I support any of them, because at the end of the day, we're one big Rangers family, and we all want the same thing. At the end of the day, we all want Rangers to be successful, and we have our good times, we have our bad times, and we have our times and we just feel damn suicidal, really, I think, with what's going on. But Scott, I'm going to start with you tonight. It's been a fascinating day today, hasn't it? And I feel like I've missed out a little bit. I've been catching up since I've got back from work. It's been a crazy day of links and just more rumours about signings. Let's start off with the obvious biggest one, which is the perspective. It hasn't been confirmed by the club yet of the lad from Twente, Proper. What's your take on that?
When I heard that, I didn't really recognise the name, obviously, because I don't watch a lot of Dutch football. But obviously, you do your usual stuff. You look him up, you see what he's all about, and you give YouTube a look on it and see how he's been playing. And I'm actually quite interested in this one. I actually quite like it. We kind of went left field in this, and it was a name from nowhere. And to me, it looks a shrewd bit of business for the manager if he can get him in. His stats are really good. I know we don't go with stats and how he plays in the park, but he's really good. He's the kind of defender we're looking for. The only thing is, looking at his stats statistics, he's not the greatest in there, but I'm just going with statistics here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for, a dominant centre half who's good in there. He seems to be more of a ball playing centre half, which we've had in the past. But listen, I'm happy can bring him in because he's a leader. He's a captain for 20, and by all accounts, a lot of their fans, which I've seen on social media and different places, that they're not happy to let him go because they say they really miss him. So to me, that tells you that the boy's a player somebody's really going to start to miss him. So, and by all accounts, he likes him on. So, if he likes him on at referees, I'm happy with that as well. But we need somebody in. What we've got just now, that's not going to take us through August, I mind, the season. Since Connor Golson's left, which Connor had to go because his legs are kind of went, but we need somebody to replace Connor. We need a leader. Connor was a leader at the back for the last good few years. I know we had different partners, but he was the main focus of that defence. But his legs have went, and he kind of manager seen that, and that's why he's probably missed the end of that season. And this season he's wanted somebody else in. So we need somebody who's a leader, but we also need somebody a bit experienced because we have got a few young players on the side. We need somebody at the back who can just mature them, get a wee bit maturity at the back, and just coach them through the game and stuff. Especially when Nasala comes in as well, he'll learn for that. But I'm happy we're going for this chap because, like I said, looking at him, I like what I see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, I haven't, like I said, I've been catching up all day. I found the news out at work. I did put a community post out when I went and hid in the office for 10 minutes. But yeah, I mean, it came right out of the blue, as you say. You know, it was not a name that's been linked. We've obviously been linked with a number of defenders like Hilgers and Scott McKenna and Danny Luck and all these. And Geordie has made the joke that a lot of people have made all day. He'll be a proper CB, and he says he'll see himself out. Davey, what's your take on this prospective signing?
Well, as Kerr alluded to, it has came from left field, but with the signings that we've made this summer, Clement did say that to expect a few experienced players coming in. He fits the pedigree. He's played over 220 games in the Eredivisie, and he's a goal threat. I think he's had over 300 career appearances, and he's got over 30 goals. In terms of a European context, he's played 16 European games as well. So he does bring a wealth of experience that we need. I think his leadership skills are something that we obviously lack. I don't think we have a commanding presence at the back, and that's both on and off the ball. Defensively, from set pieces, we are very weak in terms of our structure, and we're an easy target for opposition. They keep coming to, target us, as you've seen down our right-hand side. In behind Tav and Golson for the last 3 years has been exposed, and teams try and play through us centrally. And I think having a commanding presence in there, a leader organising not only the back line, but the players in front of them, the midfield, pulling the team from left to right in the pitch as a unit, is something that we have lacked for the best part since Steven Gerrard left. And I certainly think this is one step to addressing it in a positive manner, Owen.
Absolutely, I agree with you. I think this is what we needed at the back. I think if you look at the defensive performances in pre-season, the defensive performances last season, we were lacking someone to really organise, really pull those lads together. And I mean, yes, realistically, we do perhaps need a second centre half. I don't think that's possible in this window, given the finances, given the one in, one out philosophy we seem to have. But I think this lad is going to come in. Hopefully, he's going to be that presence at the back we need just to organise things, because neither Davis or Suter are organisers. I think Big Leon's probably the closest you've got to that, but the lad's 36. He can't play 3 games a week. I think he'll struggle to play 2 games a week, going forward. And I think a number of people have said, as much as we all love Big Leon, if he's your first choice centre half, you've got a few issues in your team. But yeah, I agree. This proper signing is a proper signing. But yeah, it came completely out of left field. And it does seem that all the signings we're getting, are coming from sort of not been those names that are linked over and over again with us, the Shanklins, for example, etc., etc. But Davey, I mean, we one of the other positions I think we badly need to address in this squad is a creative midfielder at 10. We haven't, with the news obviously that Todd's going, with the fact that obviously Yanis Hadji's likely to go as well, it leaves us with Tom Lawrence and Alex Lowry, who, I know we all would love Alex to, actually prove himself, but we realistically haven't really got a proper creative 10 in the team. 2 questions here, really, Davey. Number 1, what's your impressions of Todd going? And 2, do you think that 10 is a vital role we need to fill before Thursday or before the end of the window?
I'll take your second point first, if you don't mind, Owen,
yeah, fine.
The 10 position. So I'm not convinced that Clement is going to want to play with a 10 going forward. I think he's there by default just now, in terms of he's playing Lawrence there because he doesn't have enough players in the squad to play the way in which he wants to play. I think he wants to play with a sitting 6 and Barron and Diomande in front of that. I think he sees Diomande being the key to unlocking doors and a creative force going forward. I think Diomande plays his best football in the opposition's half of the pitch. If he's coming deep and picking the ball up, much like John Lundstrom has, best part of the last 3 years, then you're not going to get the best out of Diomande. So for me, I think Clement's going to address that with a sort of robust physical player in there doing the dirty work, if you like, and that'll allow Barron and Diomande to press teams in their half of the pitch and impose us, further on them. In terms of Todd Cantwell, there has been a personality clash between him and the manager, and it's been evident from early on. We saw in the European fixture last year when he hooked him at 45 minutes. I don't think Clement buys into how players conduct themselves in social media. I think he's a bit old school in that respect, a bit more like the Walter Smith school of management, where he'd rather the players were just off it completely. Todd Cantwell doesn't do himself any favours. First and foremost, as a Rangers player, it's all about how you conduct yourself. But before even that, before you even conduct yourself as a player, it's about doing your talking on the pitch. And unfortunately, Todd Cantwell's talking has been done on social media the vast majority of his Rangers career. He's had a fleeting 6 months when Michael Beale first took over and the pressure was off, and he had a good 6 months in that spell where we never really won anything. But when the pressure's been on and in big games, he's flattered to deceive. And Rangers ultimately, whilst I do think Todd Cantwell has qualities, need a player that has a better consistency level, never mind quality level, than Todd Cantwell, in my opinion.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I've talked about in videos a number of times about going to a flat three in midfield and actually playing with that three, with a sitting six, with Barron and Diomande either side. And if we can't get someone in, perhaps trying to get through with Barron as a six. I mean, not ideal, I know, but if you can't get someone in, you've got to kind of make the best of what you've got and play Raskin and Diomande either side if Raskin can stay fit. But I think, having that flat three, for me, Scott, it gives us more chance to match up to Celtic, to really sort of, try and keep under control if they're still there, Hatate, O'Reilly, McGregor. So, Scott, I mean, do you think a flat three is the way forward, or do you think we do need to go and get a 10?
No, I prefer playing my 6 and 2 8s. I just think it suits us better. I think, especially Lawrence at a 10. Listen, we all know Tom's a good football player, but he's not getting legs. That's where the moves start from, the opposition, and he's not pressing that much. He can do it at times, but it's not enough. And then there's space between Barron and Diomande trying to move up the park. I think Barron could do the role at a 6. I think he's done it for Aberdeen a couple of times. I think he could mature himself and get into that role. Somebody just said Sterling. Sterling would be my ideal 6, but I know Clement might start me at right back. But if he brought in a right back, I think Sterling would be ideal for that role because he's physical, he's mobile, he's strong, doesn't mind a tackle. And he doesn't have to be the best passer the ball, as long as he can just give it to others to play. So I think he'd be ideal there because I think he could protect the back as well. But obviously, if he plays right back, he plays there. But obviously, Sterling's issue is staying fit as well because he's had a few injuries since he's came here. So I think it's just a wait and see. I think we're going to be linked with a few players. Obviously, we'll be linked with Hannibal as well for United. And I think if he did come in, he'd be probably an 8 along with Diomande, and I think Barron would be sitting. But it's just all wait and see now. We've got this centre back, hopefully signs tomorrow, and we can see him in the picture with the shirt, the scarf above his head. We know he's in, but I'm just hoping we get in more. I don't know if he'll come before the European deadline but I think we'll get maybe another 2-3 after tomorrow before the end of the window. But it just depends who we move on, because at the end of the day, if we're stuck after this window finishes with Hadji, Cantwell, are we going to use them? Are they just going to sit and get a good wage and watch the team for the stand? That's not an issue. It's not something you want to happen. It could be an issue for us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think we do need that. I think we do need a robust midfield that's going to get stuck in, share a bit of nastiness, share a bit of fight, share a bit of bite, share a bit of aggressiveness. Now, one of the players we've all talked about there that's been really impressive this pre-season has been Connor Barron. For me, the way he gets around the park, the way he gets stuck in, the way he'll tackle anything. And if he loses out on a challenge, you can see he's straight back up, he's straight into them. His distribution is getting better as well. Davey, what's your impressions of the Barron signing? Personally, I think he could even be a future Rangers captain.
Yeah, no, I'll come on to that. Can I just touch on a point that
Yeah.
RFC 72 made in the comments in regards to the proper signing.
Yeah, of course.
Now, I get that there's this sense of we've just let Connor Goldson go at 31. We've just signed a guy at 30 who's going to be 31 by the time the season finishes. But if you look at it, managers of the best teams build from the back and see a centre half in their mould of how the team wants to play. And let's not forget, Walter Smith brought Davy Weir back at 37, and Davy Weir was outstanding for 3 years. Yeah. So whilst you need to regenerate with, youthful legs throughout the team, experience counts for a lot. And with this guy being a captain, he's ready-made to come into any team. So I think we can allow the manager 1 or 2 experienced signings. So I've no issue with the signing of proper and his age. And in terms of Barron, I've been very impressed. I know last season at Aberdeen, he started the season on the bench, which seems bizarre because when Warnock came in and then obviously Peter Leven took charge towards the end of last season and then started making a prominent role in the team. I think he can do anything for a midfielder in terms of he's great off the ball at closing teams down. He can carry the ball, which we have sadly lacked from midfield. A midfield runner. We've had players like Ryan Jack and John Lundstrom for too long who like to play 4 and 5 yard passes either side of them and don't like to gravitate from the position on the pitch. Whereas Barron will look to move about the pitch. He'll come deep to get the ball. He'll shut the opposition down. He'll make space off the ball and not necessarily space for himself, but he'll create space for the wide men to come inside, the fullbacks to overlap. So I think it's a terrific signing. I do think we need to temper our expectations because he is 21 at the end of the day. So although he's maybe all the footballer he's going to be in terms of he's old enough, so let's shove him in. We can be a bit too rash with Scottish signings when it comes to Rangers. I always think back to the time when Charlie Adam come through the academy. Yeah. Charlie Adam had great technical ability, but we were always, first on his case as Rangers fans. So I think we need to allow him time to grow into the shot. But it's a positive move for me. And I think him and Diomande have already struck up what looks like a tight partnership. And I'm looking forward to seeing how that develops.
Yeah, I agree, absolutely. And I think, that's one of the things that you notice in these games straight away, isn't it? That Barron's first intention is always look forward. Let's move the ball forward. Let's go forward. Let's not, do, as you were saying, Davey, what Lundstrom and Jack have done for the last couple of years, which is backwards, sideways. And it slows the player down. It lets the opposition reset. And it does, make it a lot harder to break teams down. Scott, Connor Barron, have you been impressed with him pre-season? And do you think he's a future Rangers captain?
I don't know if he's a future Rangers captain. That depends who the manager is at the time, but he's got a potential, Owen. But I think we just need to give him time. He's come in and he started really, really well in pre-season. He's performed like we wanted him to, but as you know, we all players go through a wee Barron spell. There you go. How you think there? But they all do. They all go through a spell where they're playing a few bad games, and I agree with David, we don't want the fans get on his back because Scottish players do seem to get it. I know a few Rangers players who've said the same. They get, but the Scottish guys, the fans seem to get on their backs worse. I don't know why, but they do. But listen, he's still young, he's still learning, but he's good enough to play in first team football. I said that when we signed him. He wasn't going to come in here as being in the bench or sitting watching. He was going to come in to start because he is good enough. And I think he's shown that, but he has to keep it up. But I think him and Diomande have performed well together. And the more they play together, it will get better. I just think he needs some help in there. I think another one will give the two of them more freedom to play.
I agree. We do need, I think, someone else in there. I mean, you look at it and you're depending, obviously, if Raskin can get back, can get fit, and he can get back to perhaps the player he was when he first signed. That's the worry. He's coming back from yet another injury. Yes, that injury wasn't his fault. It was as a result of a dreadful tackle. But, the name in the room that seems to be doing the rounds at the moment is Hannibal. And Hannibal seems to be this person who is, the Man United youngster. He's had experience at Sevilla, although apparently that experience at Sevilla wasn't the most positive because he had a bit of a dodgy attitude, apparently. Rumours as well tonight that Celtic apparently are interested in signing Hannibal if O'Reilly leaves. You already mentioned about obviously him as an 8. The fee as well could be a bit of a tripping point. How much money do we really have to be able to bring these players in? David, do you see Hannibal as a realistic target, or is this, do you think, just more media talk?
To me, I'm taking it as media talk. However, Fabrizio Romano mentioned it yesterday, and he tends to get his information from credible sources.
Yeah.
So there must be no smoke without fire where it's concerned. However, what I will say is I'm not convinced it's the missing part of the jigsaw. I don't think you can go with 3 young players in your midfield and let that go. I think you need that one experienced head. Raskin is well when he comes back from injury, isn't that experienced himself. He's 23, 24 perhaps.
Yeah.
So again, I would just like to see someone there who's a bit of a more different profile. I would like to see someone who's a bit more physical than Hannibal. And I know that he likes to impose himself on games, rush into tackles. However, I just think we need that one big physical unit in there. That is what's missing from Rangers. We're far too small a side. If you see how we measure up to opposition at set pieces, Ridvan you've got on the back post isn't the biggest. Connor Barron isn't the biggest. John Suter as a centre-half isn't the biggest. A right back, if it's Tavernier, isn't the biggest. So I think we need to add height and physicality in our team. And for me, Hannibal doesn't tick that box for me.
Yeah. Scott, what do you mean in terms of Hannibal? Do you think it's a realistic one? I mean, we seem to want him on loan, but United seem to want a fee for him. Now, I know it's all media talk about fees. We never know realistically what clubs actually pay for players. A lot of it is undisclosed. But the talk's been somewhere between 7.5, 8.5 million. I mean, considering that when he was at Sevilla, they had an option to buy at 17 million, which I think was wholly unrealistic for a player going to the final year of his contract. Do you see Hannibal as a good option, or would you prefer, like Davey, to see someone with a bit of nastiness, a bit of fight, a bit of the Barry Ferguson about him coming into the squad?
I think we're going to get something like Barry Ferguson again. These players don't really exist in this era of football, but I like Hannibal, I have to say. I've seen him coming through at United. He was very good. Lots of potential, which he maybe didn't fulfil as quickly as he should have. But I've seen him quite a few times at Birmingham City, and because I've been to a few of their games because my daughter stays down there, and he was really, really good. He was always pushing them forward. He was always on other teammates' back, pushing them forward, getting them going. Not in a nasty way, but just try to keep them going in games, because Birmingham at the time weren't a good side. So I liked what I seen for a young lad. He'd a will to win. Yeah, he wasn't. I mean, people say he flies into tackles. He doesn't fly into tackles. He makes a lot of tackles, which yourself in football nowadays. Referees don't want you to make a tackle at all, because every time you touch somebody, they want to give a free kick, and everybody wants a yellow card. But he has that natty streak, like Davey says. Yeah, he's 21, but he's got a bit of experience. I mean, he's played Champions League football. He's played in the Championship in England. He's played United's first team a few times. He's played in La Liga. I know not a lot, but he's played there. So for somebody that age, you still get a bit of experience. We could we afford them? I don't think so. I think that's probably out with our reach. And I think if it comes to money and they are interested, they probably will go there. But I know FC Copenhagen are interested as well. Listen, yourself, young players down in the English Premiership go for a fortune.
Absolutely.
They don't have to have played many first team games. Look at the boys for City and United, Newcastle, Liverpool. It don't make their first team, but they go for 10, 15, 20 million. And you're like, who is that guy? But they end up playing decent and go to other clubs. And you just have to look at Cole Palmer, for instance. Do you know what I mean? So, listen, I think if he signed him, it'd be a great signing for us. I'd like to see it, I would, yes, but I don't see it happening.
No, I mean, I've got to say that's the one thing that kind of stops me from thinking it's going to happen is the fee. And you're right, down south the fees are absolutely ludicrous. I mean, you've got even players, moving in and from the Championship for 20, 30, 40 million pounds. It's absolutely crazy down there. It really is. I mean, I think it was last season, there was a lad moved from Bristol City to Bournemouth for 25 million or something, and he'd only ever played Championship football. I mean, it's crazy money down there. It really is. And you're right. Any player who comes from an English club carries that English premium, and whether he's in the final year of his deal or the second year of his deal, they expect big money for them. That's the issue, and I think that's the issue we've got if we were ever to try and go back in for Seema as well, which a lot of people in the chat are kind of suggesting. One of the players that has come in that I'm really excited to see and be interested to watch, especially if he gets a game on, which I think he will, but whether he gets a start on Saturday is another matter, is Václav Černý, which I probably said that wrong. Davey, are you relieved to finally see us go out and loan and get a right winger into the club? And do you think he can make that real difference, or do you think he's going to be Scott Wright's backup?
Well, the thing in regards to that is Scott Wright does seem like part of the furniture these days. He's very hard to get rid of. But tell me, Václav Černý, he has a pedigree. He is a goal-scoring midfielder. I believe he's got 83 career goals for 260-odd appearances or whatever. So he's got a good goals return rate. I think he's run about 27 years of age. Is that correct? And he's a right winger who likes to play on the inside. He can go on the outside, but he's comfortable coming in on the left. And that's what I like. We've not had that natural balance. What that'll also allow you to do is your fullback to go on the outside, and it opens up the team and it keeps the opposition guessing. And far too often we've been too predictable playing against teams. Everybody knows how we're going to play. There has only been one way for us to play, and the vast majority has came from the fullbacks and Tavernier and Barisic for the best part of 5-6 years. So we need to try and get new invention in our team. I think the balance on the left-hand side, obviously we need to get Cortez up to full fitness, but again, he's someone who can go on the outside and come inside. He's very comfortable on both feet, and if we can get him up to full fitness where he was before he got injured at Rugby Park, then it should be very promising for us. So it's a healthy balance to have. The one thing that concerns me, and it's funny enough that you and Kerr were talking about inflated fees from the English market, let's not forget that Rabbi Matondo went from Manchester Academy to Schalke for 11.5 million. So he's somebody whose career hasn't really amounted to anything from that type of player that you were talking about. And I don't know if he's going to be used as your 60-minute sub as teams begin to tire, 60, 70 minutes. He'll come on. Personally, I'd like to get him off the wage bill and look to bring in somebody else. But I don't think we can carry a squad that doesn't have 4 wingers. Clement's made it clear that he wants to play with wingers. And you can't, go through the season expecting nothing to happen to Černý, nothing to happen to Cortez. We need to carry a bigger squad than that. So the two of them both need backups, and I don't think Scott Wright's good enough to be either backup.
No, I agree, and absolutely. Scott, are you excited to see Černý? And do you think I think one of the names that's been bandied around is he's the Czech Iron Robben. For those people who remember Iron Robben, who was one hell of a player. I think I remember commenting when someone said this: if he's half the player Iron Robben is, he's going to be a hell of a footballer, because Robben was fantastic. Or do you think he's just Scott Wright's backup?
No, I think. Listen, Scott Wright's been at Rangers now. Every manager has been with us has trusted Scott Wright in some games, because he's a type of player who listens to instructions, he follows what they say, and he does chip in with a goal, and he does okay, but okay is not good enough for me. So I do think he'll still be at Ibrox, but listen, I don't think he should be a starter. But I think Černý will come in and do well, but I don't know if he'll come in and hit the ground running. He has to get up to speed with the league, he has to get up to speed with how we play, but he has to play, because the more games he plays, that will happen. But I think he's got something in his locker that could help us, especially going forward. I think he can create. I think he can score, but it's what he does defensively in this league. Do you know yourself? You have to come back and defend, and I think the manager will tell him that, because Cantwell get pulled up for it a few times. Ross McCausland has been pulled up for it as well. So I think Clement will be telling Černý that's fine going forward, but whoever's behind him, we have to go back and help him out at times.
Yeah, absolutely. You've got to obviously track back. You've got to be that player that does the full job for Rangers. You can't just be the Manchester United Anthony style who stands on the halfway line with his hands on his hips waiting for someone to give him the ball. That's just not not acceptable at our club. One of the new signings that's caused some interesting debate for me as well is Hefte, or Jeff Tay, or however you say his name. I think he's had a lot of criticism pre-season, which I think some of it's been a little unfair. Yes, his defensive side of the game is very weak. Going forward, he looks very good going forward, which he is Brazilian after all, and let's face it, how many Brazilians know how to defend? David, in terms of Hefte, I think that he's someone who in time can be coached to defend. And I hope that is something that you know, that Van der Heyden and Alderlink and Clement can do. But you know, could you see him perhaps having a role as one of those backup wingers going forward? Because he does seem to be better going forward than going backwards.
It is a fair point. Obviously, that question was asked of Tav in years gone by, but he was probably the wrong age profile for us to attempt that. Hefty obviously has pace in abundance, and that's things that can exploit teams in this league, because he'll be much quicker than the opposition and they won't like chasing him, you know, facing their own goal. The one thing that I do like about him is his build and his physicality. That is something that we have lacked, and to get someone like that, there must be something in there. Coppin has a track record of terrific signings in terms of his chief scout role at PSV, so I don't think he would do bad business. So I think we have to allow him the chance to develop, but I do think there's scope there for him to be used in a more advanced role. Also think he could top and tail with Ridvan, so if Ridvan goes forward, he could fill in with him. So it's possibly something to look at, but I think he'll be a backup player this season. It'll be edged in, you know, possibly in League Cup games when the tie is won, or Scottish Cup games away from home. I don't expect him to get much starting minutes, but as we know, Ridvan is not the most robust player. He does have a poor track record when it comes to injuries, so perhaps he might play more often than I'm expecting.
Absolutely, 100%. Yeah, I think, you know, that is one big way. I mean, Ridvan for me is the class act at left back. He's one of the best players we've got on the squad. You just got to look at what he can do as a player. He goes outside, he inverts inside, he can put a ball in from deep or from the byline. His defensive set is a lot better than what Barisic's was last season, and I think more than any left back we've got at the club. Scott, in terms of, you know, Hefty, you know, what's your take on Hefty, and is the left back area one area of the squad that you could actually describe as having a decent strength in depth?
Yeah, Ridvan can stay fit on. We all know Ridvan can he's a run of games and looks very good, and he gets an injury. He just needs a consistent run of games, because I think Yilmaz Ridvan's got a lot of ability, and I think he's proven that at times. Defensively, he has to improve as well, I think. But listen, see, full-backs nowadays, wing-backs, whatever people call them, they're not the best defensively as used to be. Used to be if you played full back. I know that myself, because I used to play left back about 35 years ago when I was in school. So there you go. But you were always told to defend first and go forward second. Now it's opposite. You're always told to break the lines, go forward, and your defenders and midfielders cover you. But as we've seen how Tav's done over the seasons, it's just he will learn Scottish football. William said in the chat there, you can see he's a technically gifted player, Hefty. You can see that he's comfortable on the ball, he's got good balance. I think he just has to get used to our game. He's not used to the physicality here and people breathing down his neck after the one touch, so he'll get used to it. But he will be a quality player. But time will tell on him. But I think he's a good backup for Ridvan at the moment.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I did the squad analysis that I did. I think, you know, the goalkeeping area and the left back area were the two areas that I kind of described as being the strongest in the squad at this moment in time. I mean, left backs, you've obviously got Hefty, Ridvan, and Robbie Fraser. I know Fraser's been used more forward during pre-season, but he can fill in that left back role. Look, I think, you know, you look at the business we've done so far, Davey. And yes, it's a work in progress. But you know, there's been fans that are over the moon with it, fans that are criticising it. I suppose that's just Rangers fans. What's your take on the business we've done so far in this window? Do you think we're on the right track, or is it still a worry for you?
It's still a worry for me, I have to be honest. If we're all being honest, I think we have to say that from the last game of last season, the squad is currently weaker at this moment in time. That is an honest reflection. We are a work in progress. We're hoping that it's going to be, you know, bigger and better this season. However, we do lack quality in key positions and we do lack quantity across the board. So that's what I was saying earlier in regards to, I think we need to carry 2 players for each position. Yeah. Your squad should be about 25, where you have 3 goalkeepers and 2 players for every position. And unfortunately, we are way short of that at the moment. We seem to have an abundance of centre halves that we don't want to use. And by that, I mean, you know, guys like Ben Davis. And I think if we're being kind to Leon Balogun, although he was probably our best centre half last year, none of us expected when he came back last year that he would be getting another deal this year. That is the current state of play, that Leon Balogun got another deal, and that's no disrespect to him. But you've got to move on as a football club. You can't keep looking back, and to progress your squad, you have to regenerate it, and you have to regenerate it with youth. And try and get the right blend of experience. We can't just do the simple thing and go back to somebody because they've done a job. It's lazy. We have to sort of wipe the slate clean of anybody from the Gerrard era and just move it forward for me. And unfortunately, it's just stagnated a little. I'm hoping that because with the Champions League qualifier, the deadline being tomorrow, 11 p.m, you still get 2 emergency signings the day before the game up until midnight to register. Yeah. So that buys us maybe 4 days to do a bit of business. I think how we perform at Tynecastle on Saturday will go a long way to seeing if we maybe get 1 or 2 more before the Champions League qualifier.
Yeah, that's definitely got to be the thing, because this squad is nowhere near good enough to take on Dynamo Kiev. Kiev are currently 1-0 up in the 50th minute. They're 7-2 up on aggregates. I think we can pretty much presume it's Kiev we're going to play. And I honestly feel the squad are I don't know. I know I get accused of negativity on this. Aren't good enough to beat Kiev at this moment in time. Scott, do you still worry about this squad, or do you think there's still, or do you think the business we've done so far is good enough, or are you still very concerned?
Listen, it takes time on. Listen, we all want players in. We all want more players in because we all feel we need it, but we have to get players out first. And Clement's doing what we all kind of asked him to do: get rid of A, B, C, and D, and bring in others. But until they go, like you said earlier on, he maybe can't move for more players. He said he spoke to players, but it's about getting players out the door first. So there's Connor Golson away a day later. We're supposed to be bringing in the boy for FC20, so we don't want more players in. Well, it happened, I think, between now and the end of the transfer window, there'll be another 4. I think there will be another 4 players in, but it just depends. It depends on the players as well. Once other teams start maybe fixing out their squads, there'll be more players available to go for. But I do think we need more players in. At the moment, is the squad good enough? I think if you can get the squad playing, which you've not really seen in pre-season, probably against Union Berlin, we've seen attacking wise, that was probably the best we've played all pre-season. The 4 goals we scored are really good goals, but defensively we were awful. So if we can get that side of it working, again, attacking wise, then we should do okay, but we have to improve defensively. So that's obviously why he's went for a centre-back. So the manager at this moment in time is just probably picking a team for each game we play until he can get more players in to help out. And he's looking at his squad at the moment and saying, who's the best for this playing against Hearts? He'll look at his squad and say, who's the best I can use then? And then obviously European game comes in, he'll do the same with that. So I think there were different teams at different games until he gets more players through the door. It's just a wait and see. There's no point in pushing it because we're very impatient Rangers fans, aren't we? And I don't mean just us, all football fans are, but we have to give him time, especially if we want this change. It doesn't happen overnight. Yeah, he's had 2 windows, but when you not get wads of cash to spend, and we couldn't spend it anyway because obviously the FFP thing, but we have to be clever how we're spending it, and that's what I think what he's trying to do. So what we've got at the moment is maybe not good enough. It should be good enough to win the SPL games, I think. I still think that. But European games, I think we can maybe get through against Kiev, but I think the Champions League is too far a stretch, and I'd be happy dropping into Europa.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I do want to touch on the situation, obviously, with Clement, with the squad and the squad strength going into the SPL games, and I'm going to get to that. But one topic, and I know I'm going to be playing with fire here, and I know I'm going to probably get some more slaughtering, but it keeps coming up in the live chat quite a lot. Davey, where do you stand on the whole James Tavernier situation? Does he stay? Does he go? Do you want him out? Do you want him to stay? Where do you stand with the whole James Tavernier situation at Rangers? Because it seems to be a topic that just keeps coming up with fans over and over again.
For me, James Tavernier has stayed 2 seasons too long at Rangers. I think he's just got stale. There's been a distinct drop-off in terms of his physicality on the pitch. He's lost maybe 4 or 5 yards at pace that he had. He was never the fastest, but he did have, enough recovery pace in him. If you're playing at Ross County, as we did the week when the season got really bad for us and we lost 3-2, every goal came down James Tavernier's side in terms of how the play started. Teams target him. If Ross County are targeting you as the weak link of the team, then you cannot survive at Rangers. And regardless of your service and regardless of your status, it has to be refreshed. And I don't think he offers us much in terms of going forward. The way Clement doesn't play the same way that Gerrard does. So Gerrard, the key for him was his fullbacks high and wide. Clement wants to play with wingers high and wide. So his defenders at fullback are restricted. He doesn't want them coming further than the halfway line. And that's no James Tavernier's game. He looks lost. He doesn't know what to do. He can't track runners. I think one thing that has to be noted as well, he missed a few for the penalty spot last season as well. So I know he's been captain and he's continued to take the penalties and he's continued to keep the status. But for me, time for a change, and change is good. Change is needed. You can't keep accepting failure. And far too often, failure has been imposed on Rangers fans for the Rangers board because they've not done enough to help us change that. And unfortunately for me, as good as he's been at times, James Tavernier, for me, has came up quite short. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but when you're made a Hall of Famer and you've been here for as long as he has, while he's still playing at the club, despite only winning 3 trophies, and then the team from across the city, their new captain comes in and wins more trophies than him in this, in a 3-year spell, that's unacceptable. You make your club a laughingstock at that point. So for me, it has to be addressed. The captaincy has to be taken off him. And if we get a half decent enough offer, it's thanks for your service, but wish you all the best for the future.
No, I have to say I agree with 100% with what you said there, Davey. I mean, I think, he's just past it physically. He's lost a yard of pace. He can't keep up. And I think, if you go back across last season, especially from March onwards, and you look at where teams attacked us, and I'm not just talking about in the SPL, I'm talking about in Europe, I'm talking about all games we played. They came at the right hand side of our defense constantly because they knew they could just run him. And Dyson Maida just absolutely owned him the whole of last season, owned him. And Maida's not even that great a player. I mean, he's all right, but he ain't great. And I agree with you on the Hall of Famer thing. I started off when I was podcasting, started off doing NFL. I'm still a massive NFL fan. And I think it's 3 years. You've got to have been retired 3 years before you get considered for a Hall of Fame place in the NFL or even with a team. So team I follow, Pittsburgh Steelers, you have to be retired 3 years before you can even get into the Hall of Fame. So for a player to be playing and still in the Hall of Fame, to be put into the Hall of Fame, I think is an absolute joke. So, yeah, I mean, for me, he's got to go. And what worries me is the fact that he's still here and that he could still play a role and start at some points this season. And for me, he's a real weak link back there. And I know that opinion's unpopular with some people because you've just got to look at the abuse you get at the moment. You suggest that James Tavernier shouldn't start or he shouldn't play. Scott, do you think Tav stays? And I mean, or do you think it's time he's gone? And if he does stay, do you think he actually will start a good percentage of games this season?
I think Tav will leave before the end of the window. I think that's a say. I think he's already checked out. I think he wants to go. I think the club want him to go. It's just getting the agreed fee or a buyer. I think that the club are interested in him. I still are, but I think that the fee was the issue. Also, I will say he hasn't been playing great recently. He has been taking a lot of abuse and his legs have went, like Davey says. But I will say this for him. It's not just his fault. We've only won 3 trophies in that time. There's 11 players, or 20 players, 22 players in a squad. He took Tavernier out a lot of the teams. We still probably win the league, so it's not just his fault. But I do think his time at Rangers is up. He's probably had stayed maybe a season or 2 seasons longer than he should have, but that's not Tav's fault. That's the manager. I want him still to be there. And they made him captain, and it's not his fault. I was made captain. If someone says to you, here's a captaincy, you take it. So I think he will leave before the end of the August window. And good luck to him wherever he goes. But you need to move ahead, you need to move fresh. And if he is still in the club through August, I think if Sterling's fit, Sterling will play in front of him. I think the manager knows that.
Yeah, I think Sterling's got to play in front of him for me, definitely 100%. And yeah, his time's up for definite. I think it's time he moved on. I know that'll be unpopular with some fans. There is still a substantial group within the fan base who, can't see any ill in Tav whatsoever. and that's fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I mean, getting on now, obviously talking about the whole situation with Clement. Philippe Clement needs time. He does need time, in my opinion. And I've been a vocal backer of this, and I've said this on a number of videos that he needs, the time to actually get this squad right. He needs, I think, for me, time to undo all the mistakes of the past, because I think, as Davey alluded to, this board, the managers of the past, the director of football, Ross Wilson, Stuart Robertson, have made a huge sequence of mistakes in transfer windows past, in terms of signing off on ridiculous contracts, signing off on ridiculous signings. He needs time to get this right. He needs time to build the club back up and to build a squad capable of challenging not only in Scotland but eventually in Europe. And I'm not talking about winning the Champions League. That's just that's ridiculous. We haven't got the money for that. We never will. But Davey, do you feel sorry for Clement to some degree that that he's been left with all this rubbish and he's got to try and sort it all out now? And do you think he's going to be given the time to do it?
I don't know if I feel sorry for him, because me being a Rangers fan, I always have an expectancy of a Rangers manager that no matter the obstacles in front of you, you must overcome them. That is the same for the players. It has to be the same for the manager. And towards the end of last season, when things started to go wrong, he did have a couple of troubling sound bites for me in terms of how he conducted himself in his press conferences. I don't think how he handled the Todd Cantwell situation last midweek is a great reflection for a Rangers manager. There's an expectancy in terms of how you conduct yourself as a player, but that as a manager is a further step ahead. And I don't think you deal with business like that, as publicly like that, and throw somebody under the bus to the media. You deal with that in-house, you sort it out in-house. That's always been the way. That's how Walter Smith done it. That's how Dick Advocaat done it. That should be the way and the mantra of a Rangers manager for me personally. However, he has been dealt, a really tough deck of cards, let's be honest. And even alluded to that with the John Bennett interview, when John Bennett said, we sat down in May and we had the conversation that Clement says this is a bigger rebuild than I expected. So, yeah, we need to temper expectations. However, to quote John Bennett again, when we say the caveat is, if Philippe Clement struggles at the start of the season and we lose at Tynecastle, we lose at Parkhead, we don't qualify for the Champions League, then he's under severe pressure. You won't survive long in Glasgow if you can't beat the opposition. He's already 4 games down, and let's be honest, we haven't really played that well in any of them. We're unlucky in the cup final, but again, did we really play that great? No, we just did enough to get by. That's not good enough. We have to see better patterns of play from his team. I still don't know the identity of a Philippe Clement side. So, yes, temper expectations, but he could do better just as well as some of his players.
Yeah, I think you're right there, Dave. There's an expectation there is clearly an expectation on a Rangers manager, and I think it's always been said any Rangers manager who doesn't beat Celtic doesn't last long. I mean, that's just a cold, hard fact of being Rangers manager. Scott, do you think that if Clement, if say we get to the end of August and we are out of the Champions League, we've lost to Celtic in that first game at Parkhead, which will be a tough game because it's at Parkhead, not Ibrox. Is he going to come under pressure, and can he survive that pressure?
I think it depends on how we're playing. You see, if you're going to games and you're actually seeing progress in the park, you're actually seeing what we're trying to do. You see he's trying to do. He's got a formation and a setup and a structure that fits his players. He doesn't. I don't mean having one he wants to play. He has to have one to suit his players. So especially the players he's got at the moment. So if you see the team being unlucky in games or winning a few games quite well, or maybe just no being there, we can say, well, look at what he's got. He's trying, but if we start the season very, very badly, then you know yourself, the pitchforks will be out. That's just the way of being a football fan. We all want to win games, and Walter Smith always said you're only 2 feet away from a crisis at Rangers, and he's spot on. Even 2 feet, probably 2 draws, but it's just the way it goes. But it's harsh on him to give him time. But what David said is true. We still to see a Clement side because we don't really see what we're trying to do, especially pre-season. I thought it was the way we played at times was really bad. There was no any patterns of play. There wasn't any structure to the team. You seen players in the park actually arguing with each other because we're trying to pass the ball into an area and their player was in the area was somewhere else. I've seen Dessers and Diamandi doing it a few times. So they need to learn a system that they'll know how to play. They'll know where each other are in the park. So if you can see that happening, then I think he will get time. But if not, then, like I said, the fans will start complaining. John Bennett's no daft. He knows himself. He's not going to enjoy being a fan base who are going to every game screaming abuse at him and at the manager. So, you know yourself, football, and it's a fickle game, but results matter. And we'll all see after Saturday. And it's a results driven business, no matter what league you're in, what team you manage, or who you support. We all want to win. So, and until we see a style of play that's looking decent, until we see a structure in place and a patterns are playing the park and something going forward, no matter who's playing the side, then we can say, well, he's trying hard with what he's got. But and if he doesn't, then I said that could turn sour very quickly. But hopefully not, because I think he's trying his best with what he's had to work with. I think he's trying to bring players in who thinks will improve us. And I agree, we can't keep sacking managers, but that's also not a reason to keep a manager.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, thank you to Charles for the £10 super chat. He says Dessa's 16 league goals. He's pissed, Sal, and keeps saying scored 2 against Union Berlin, who stayed up through a playoff. And Hannibal, hope we don't sign him. Done nothing on loan, gives me the fear. I will touch on that point about Dessa's, Charles. Don't worry. Just want to keep obviously talking about the Clement situation, and you've kind of alluded to the fact that that he needs time. He might get time now. In his interview, John Bennett seemed to talk very much about the fact that Clement was all in. The vast majority of people at the club were all in. It did seem like not everybody was all in from what he was saying, and he said we can't go through this rinse repeat cycle of bring a manager in, gets to October, sack him. We then have the same conversation 6 months later. We need to give the manager time. He comes in October, we sack him, we move on. We can't turn into, this is not what Bennett said, but we can't turn into Watford, we can't turn into Chelsea. David, Bennett talked a lot about that, didn't he? And he talked a lot about being a Rangers fan. That's one thing he kept on saying. Do you trust Bennett to stick by Clement or Clement and full stop? Do you trust John Bennett full stop as chairman of this club?
Well, I have to be honest, there was a comment from Ian Thompson there which touched on something that I disagree with in terms of not trusting John Bennett. John Bennett said that, this is the time to start the player training model. John Bennett has been chairman for 2.5 years. The player training model should have already been in structure because he talked about it then. He can't just say that stops with the changing in the manager, because the club must function around no matter who the manager is and who the playing squad is. It's the club's responsibility to keep that moving and regenerate it. So John Bennett is completely culpable for where we are right now. He only speaks every 2.5 years when it suits him. He talked about in that interview in terms of obviously contingency with the stadium and things like that. Now, how can you not have a contingency plan in place that if things don't get delivered, one, the people who are your suppliers are financially fined for that, so that covers the costs of Hampden? He never explained any of that in the interview. So how you can take anything he says with a pinch of salt going forward, I'm sorry, I don't buy it as a Rangers fan. And I know a lot of Rangers fan media at the moment said, oh, it's great that he come out. But for me, it's no good enough. Rangers fan base deserve better than what John Bennett's given them. And I don't subscribe to it, because if things do go wrong for Philip Clement, John Bennett is the first person that will hang Philip Clement up to take the brunt of it, and he will pay the price for his job. And it's John Bennett and the board's failings that we have kept sacking managers the last few years. When we were on top, we chose not to give the money to Gerrard to strengthen. And then when Gerrard left, we chose not to give the money to Van Bronckhorst. Then when we sacked Van Bronckhorst, we chose to give the money to a rookie manager who had 26 games previous before he was the manager of Rangers. We are amateur hour at board level, and it has to be addressed going forward, because I think John Bennett is on what we call a sugly peg in Scotland. And I, for one, think that this season is the season that the fans will fight back against that, because we can't keep accepting mediocrity both on and off the park. And at the moment, that's exactly what we're getting.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you, Davey, on that one. And it's something I've said on videos, loads of videos, is that, he is as culpable for everything that's gone on at this club, because I think people seem to forget he was the vice chair to Park. He was part of the decision-making process post 55. He was part of the decision-making process to hire Michael Beale, to sack Gio. He was part of the decision-making process throughout that time. Now, if he was so passionate about a player trading model, why is it just now that he decided to really push it? Why wasn't he pushing it to Douglas Park? I'm sure Douglas Park would have loved a way to raise more money in Britain and get more money, especially if it had gone into Douglas Park's pocket rather than into the club's pocket. But I agree, and I do like that that point that Curry made. And I know Curry can be controversial at times, but I do like this. He said after the interview, it was 22 minutes of "it wasn't me," which it did seem to be like everything but him, But you're right. I think people forget that Bennett has been here for an awful long time. It's not like he's just got the job in the last 12 to 24 months. He has been here a long time. And the fact that Park's son is still involved in the board, so that Douglas Park has some influence still. I think he's still one of the biggest shareholders of the club as well. So it's a situation that the board do have to hold their hands up and say, you know what, we've got this wrong. We've made huge mistakes, but they're not going to do that. And like you said, they're going to find their scapegoat. Yes, Beale should have gone, but Bram Bronkhorst wasn't properly backed. Some of the players he wanted to bring in have gone for 37 million. Matson's gone from this summer. I'm not saying we would have got him, but if we had, that's 37 million. Somerville, I think, is on the verge of joining West Ham for 45 million. These are players that would have gone to make a huge difference. Scott, in terms of that interview, and in terms of Bennett giving Clement time, do you think he will give Clement time? And do you agree with Davey and myself that he has an awful lot of blame to carry for the situation this club currently finds itself in?
The board do have a lot of blame to carry. The problem with the board, though, is they brought in Ross Wilson, who I was never a fan of Ross Wilson, but they brought in Ross Wilson and they gave Ross Wilson far too much power and let him go on with it. And Ross Wilson was in charge of basically everything the football side. He made all the decisions, nobody seemed to interfere. And we all know where that got us. That's why Gio struggled to bring in players, because Ross Wilson was in charge of transfers in and out. And then we're not a good CEO. Bennett's and the rest of the board members, we need a CEO who actually knows what they're doing. But listen, John Bennett will back Clement as long as Clement's doing well. But like David says, as soon as anything goes pear-shaped, he'll not back him then, because it'll not be a good look for him. He will chuck him under a bus. But his interview wasn't any transparency in it. It was well scripted, well written. He tried to appease the points that he thought his supporters wanted to hear about the stadium build and where they're going to be sitting at Hampden. Apart from that, I never really told us anything. And the player trading model was just a thing to try and look good, to say we'll try to bring players in to sell to make money. But if that actually happened years ago, but like I said, they gave Ross Wilson far too much power, and that probably set us back far than it should have.
Yeah, absolutely. Stephen says here, so I did not know Bennett is the only person. I mean, we're not saying that it's just Bennett. We're saying that the whole board are culpable for the mistakes that have been made. But John Bennett is the face of the board. He is the chairman. He is the guy who, has to, at the moment, without the fact we don't have a CEO, is in control of everything. He's taken on the CEO role. He's the chairman. He's controlling what's going on. He has an oversight of running this club. He has a control of this club. And if you are the person who is in charge of a company, whether it be a football club or a retail company or any sort of company, you are culpable for what that company does. And at the end of the day, if that company doesn't perform, you're the one who will get the majority of the blame for that. And John Bennett is, after all, the face of Rangers at this moment in time, until, as Scott says, we get a CEO who knows what he's doing, who can come in and actually knows football. And I think what we need to do, I don't know if you agree with this, Davey, but we need the board to just take a backward step. Let the CEO, let Coppen, let Clement get on with actually running the club, and just be there as a consultancy, as to to sort of back up the financial side of the club, but let the people who know what they're doing run this club. I mean, Davey, what's your impression of that?
It's hard to argue with that. It's a fair summary, in all honesty. But the thing that I think at the moment is a club, as a fan base, our expectation is the lowest it's been, as I touched on at the start of the show. There's not going to be the synergy that Philip Clement talked about last season when he came in, because we're not going to be playing at our home stadium. and we don't have a realistic return date. It's all right saying, Bennett's speculated the end of September, but these works were supposed to be completed before the season start, so that could roll on past September into the new year. I just want to make fans aware of that, because I have no assurances from the chairman, and we don't have fans that will be returning to our stadium anytime soon. So as a club, we're fractured at the moment, to say the least. We're up in arms about, the squad and where it's sitting at the moment. None of us truly believe that at this moment in time we've got a squad capable of challenging for the league title. And at Rangers, that's an expectancy, and not only just to challenge for it, but to win it. And if we're way off that just now in terms of expectations, that tells you what John Bennett's tenure has done to this club. We've went from league champions to European finalists to not even expecting to challenge for the league. That's totally unacceptable under his tenure.
Absolutely, 100% agree on that one. And we have to, as a club, there is a standard we have to meet. There is an expectation, that we challenge every season, that we win every season. I think was it Walter Smith said that, it's not an unfair expectation as a Rangers player, as a Rangers manager, as a Rangers fan, that we win every single game that we compete in. That should be the expectation. And I think at times this board are quite happy with us to be also Rans, as long as the club's making money for them and they're getting a return on their investment, which, they have to get. Don't get me wrong. If you're investing in something, you want a return. But yeah, there is, I think you're right, Davey, a big fracture in this club. And one of the things, Scott, that came across for me in that interview, that when he spoke about the stadium, everything was, I have to put the caveat on that. There's a caveat on that. There's a caveat on this. If this turns up, there's a caveat on that. It is a real worry, isn't it, Scott, going forward, that we won't be back in Ibrox by September the 28th. That home game, I think, is against Hibs. And like Davey said, this could roll into the new year, and it could have a real detrimental effect on the club.
It could, but there's not a lot we can do now. It's happened. The players and managers just have to go on with it, and the fans do as well. Listen, it's not great. I do think there's a lot more to this than they're telling us. I do think there's a lot more issues going on at the stadium, and obviously where they went and got the stuff. I don't know if they obviously went to China to get it. I'm not a builder, so I don't know what they needed to buy, what they didn't need to buy, but I think there's a lot more involved than they're telling us. Listen, we all know building work can be delayed. I mean, you get stuff done in your house, it can be delayed. You get stuff done that size, that magnitude of size, it's going to be delayed. But last home game of last season, we left, we were all told the work was starting then. This is nearly the 1st August, and the stuff's not arrived yet to start with the work. So there's a lot of stuff they've probably not told us. I don't want to tell us because it will make it look like a shit show. And they just come out and tried to use a caveat thing, saying we're hoping to be back in for September, but we don't know if we will. We'll never know the full story. We never will. And all I can say is, as long as it's done properly and as long as it's done right, because it's what it is needed at Ibrox for the disabled supporters, then I'll be happy with that. But we'll probably find out what really happened in a couple of seasons, but he's not going to tell us that. So it's just something we have to go on with, the manager and the players. The only good thing is we've played at Hampden a few times. We know the surface, we know what it's like, and we just have to go on with it. Yeah, Scott Wright always plays well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he's Mr. Hampden, isn't he? You never know. That might be the theory behind it. That's why we're moving to Hampden, and that's why Scott Wright's getting such a run out, because he is Mr. Hampden. You know what, Davey? Scott, he might score 30 goals this season at home just because we're playing at Hampden.
Well, that ultimately gives me the fear. Cyril Dessers leading the line and Scott Wright starting every week. We're in for some season as Rangers fans. I'll probably need a heart bypass before the end of it. But touching on just what you were saying there, obviously we are away from the stadium and there's financial implications to that in terms of hospitality, as people have been touching in the comments. But the worry for me is that won't be detailed in our annual accounts until the annual accounts published next year. So this buys the board enough time to, shortchange the fans and come up with their excuses until they have to face the music, which ultimately, doesn't lead to us getting anywhere, unfortunately. And for me, the appointment of a CEO is important, but see those who are at the club in positions of power, and by that I mean, your guys like the SLO and stuff like that have to do more in terms of communicating with the fans. And I'm not singling out Greg Marshall or anybody like that to say they're no good at their job or anything, but communication at the club is poor. If your chairman's only talking to you every 2.5 years, Rangers is one of the biggest clubs in the world. You have to talk to your fan base more readily than that. There has to be more transparency, especially issues when things are going wrong and you're not going to be, playing in your stadium. The fact that the media was briefed before season ticket holders, to me, is an absolute disgrace, and it's no way to conduct your club. The fans and the paying supporters must always come first.
Agreed. Absolutely, 100% agreed. And I think that's one of the biggest criticisms of this board, of Bennett and of the whole board, is that the communication is just shocking. It is so poor. And, this again was with the interview as well. It was a rehearsed interview. It was a scripted interview with pre-prepared questions. I would love, Scott, to actually see Bennett sit down and do a live interview. Obviously, I know, yourselves and myself wouldn't obviously get anything on that one, but for someone like Heart and Hand or Four Lads to actually sit down and actually question him properly and have fans question him as well, I think would be very revealing. But I genuinely don't think that Bennett would have the courage to do that, and I don't think he could do that, if I'm being honest.
To be honest with you, I don't think many chairmen would, no matter the club they're at. I think it's a difficult one. Remember when David Murray was in charge and it was the Rangers Trust at the time? I remember that, and they tried to speak to him. It would only let you in. It would ask, you only could ask certain questions. Then it would only tell you certain things. If you said something they like, you had to leave your meeting or leave whatever. So I think they're always the same. They're always going to do stuff, and the fans don't know. We're just a paying customer. We've no any other saying what they do, because at the end of the day, they know the fans are always going to come. 100% every season, the fans are going to back the club. They're going to buy the 3 strips. They're going to buy season tickets. They're going to buy programs. They're going to buy My Jail memberships. They're going to go to Emerson House. They're going to all do the hospitality. They're going to do all this stuff because we're paying supporters and we love our team. But they're in it for a different side. That's not what they're in it for. Some of them might be, listen, John Bennett is a very big Rangers fan. I know that for a fact. But it doesn't mean he's going to be a good chairman because he's a very big Rangers fan. It's just the way things are. I know this is all in John Bennett. It's all the board, and he's put in this position. But what he's come out and said to the club TV, the club channel, he's not going to come out and say it to anybody else. You just said it yourself. It was a really rehearsed interview with questions he wanted and nothing more. And that's the way it's going to be. And we can all sit here and moan and groan about it and say this or say that. But I think David Edgar touched on it in one of his updates. He wasn't very happy, but we just have to move on. Listen, see if we can start getting some players in and start getting the results. We'll forget about it. But we probably shouldn't, because it's been a poor issue. But there's not a lot, like I said, NAs can do now. We just have to move forward, which is difficult, but we do have to move forward.
Absolutely, 100%. Right, guys, so I'll bring this to an end. Obviously, we're just over the hour mark now, and we've all got lives and things like that to get on with. Davey, just sort of, what are your final thoughts going into this game on Saturday? How are you feeling? What are your hopes? What are your fears?
Obviously excited. It's good to get the domestic game back. I really can't be bothered with any of that international stuff, and no matter where Rangers play, we will always follow on. So I'm expecting a big performance from the players, because they've been very tepid, shall we say, during pre-season, and I'm expecting to see a reinvigorated and rejuvenated side. Tynecastle's always a great place to play. The fans are on top of the pitch. It'll make for a great atmosphere. They'll be up for it because they'll think that they've got a good chance to play against us and get something from it. So that'll add a certain spice to the fixture. We have to relish that challenge and come out all guns blazing and show intent going forward. We have to see an identity about us, a willingness to win, and show that we're up for the fight this season, because far too often when it's mattered, no matter who the manager's been last 3 years, that's where we're falling short. We started last season with an away defeat. We must not succumb to that this Saturday.
Absolutely, 100%. Scott, what are your final thoughts and what are your hopes and fears ahead of Saturday?
To be honest, I don't really get any fears. I don't think Hearts are a great side. I think they're a decent side, but I don't think we should fear them. I think Stephen Naismith plays a kind of open brand of football, and they want to attack. So when they do attack us, there's going to be space for us to break them. Going to be space for us to break their lines and get forward. It's obviously we have to take our chances, but I think there will be opportunities. On the other hand, we have to defend better, because Hearts kind of do the same. So we have to defend better, because as you know, with Shankland, he can give him 2 chances, he probably scores 1. Whereas give Dessers 2 chances, he probably misses 2. Or if it depends what sort of Dessers turns up. Listen, we don't know what one will turn up. The good one could turn up, or the one who is poor can turn up. That's the problem with Cyril Dessers. He's an enigma. We don't know who he is at times. But I'm not actually scared going into the game on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the football back. I think we will get a result. It's the matches after that. It's playing against like some Motherwell, and the other games just seem to falter. The other games just seem to panic more in. Whereas we've seen at Ibrox last season when we lost to Motherwell, when that boy Theoberto tore goals in a new one just because he couldn't handle him. And whereas we went to Tynecastle last season, we were comfortable. We played Hearts at Ibrox, we were quite comfortable. So Hearts will come for us because they'll think Rangers are there for the taking. They will come and get us, and it's up to us to stand up to that. And like I said before, we can hit them on the break, or we can play through them. And somebody mentioned in the chat here about going to Ibrox pre-soonest. I remember when Lawrence Milborough owned the club, and the next minute he sells it, and Davis Holmes is sitting with Graham Souness, and everything kind of changed from then on. So hopefully things start to progress further forward with Clement, but you can't turn back time, can you? I wish it was back to their days, but you can't turn back time.
Absolutely, 100%. Well, guys, thank you so much to all the live chat tonight, obviously, for all your contributions, your comments, and some of the funny comments as well that have gone through. Fantastic to see. Thank you so much to both Scott and Davey for coming on the pod tonight. Absolutely brilliant to have them on. Guys, please, obviously, after this pod finishes, go over straight away, Not Another Rangers podcast, smash that sub. Obviously, follow them on X to stay up to date with what they're doing. Instagram, follow them on there, give them a follow, give them a sub. Davey, just give us one last plug and tell us something you've got coming up that everyone needs to come and watch and see.
Not Another Rangers podcast, Friday, 8:30 live on YouTube. Big season preview with myself, Scott, and a very special guest from Rangers podcast history.
There we go. So, guys,
just going to say, thanks for having us on tonight. It's been a pleasure. And listen, you can come on and join us one night when you get time, and we can come back on here. But thanks.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
Thanks everybody in the chat for the comments, and like I say, like and subscribe. Not Another Rangers podcast, but also keep following on because it does a lot of good stuff.
Thank you very much. Cheers, Davies. Cheers, Scott. Guys, like I said, I'm always here to support all Rangers podcast. We are one Rangers family. We all want the same thing. We all want to just talk about our club, and we want the best for our club. That's all we want at the end of the day. Guys, thank you so much. As always, 2 things that I like to ask for you. Number 1, please smash that like. And number 2, remember always, we are the people.